Is he playing? I didn't know. No, I just think that, we play in different eras. He's an unbelievable player. Yeah, he's one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world. I know it's a natural tendency to compare eras to eras, and it's going to continue to happen. I'm a fan of his. I love watching him play. But it's, as you can see, our league is starting to expand on very talented players. And, I think he's made his mark. He will continue to do so over a period of time. But when you start the comparisons, I think it is what it is.
I have LeBron James as number 2 all time. We're talking about Russell. We're talking about Kareem. We're talking about Wilt. We're talking about Kobe. We're talking about Elgin Baylor and Oscar Robertson and all these people. I have the man number 2. In his world, that's an insult.
Michael Jordan didn't even need a long statement to shake up the basketball world again. And that's exactly why fans are going crazy over this situation. In a recent CBS interview, the Hall of Famer finally addressed the GOAT conversation, but instead of claiming the title, he rejected the entire idea. Jordan explained that there is no single greatest of all time in basketball, because every generation learns from the previous one and pushes the game forward. That single perspective was enough to reignite the long-running Jordan versus LeBron debate, especially since it dropped right around another major moment involving LeBron James. LeBron was asked once again in an ESPN interview to compare himself to Jordan, and his response also avoided a direct claim. He described the GOAT debate as exhausting, calling it more like barbershop conversation than something meaningful, while still showing deep respect for Jordan. At the same time, he pointed out that their games are fundamentally different. LeBron emphasized his role as more of a pass-first playmaker, while Jordan was built as a scoring-focused competitor, an answer that doesn't end the debate, but instead fuels it even further. As soon as LeBron spoke, Jordan's silence became part of the conversation again. Fans started wondering whether his refusal to engage directly says more than any quote ever could. What makes this even more interesting is Jordan's usual approach to public debates like this. He rarely reacts to criticism, avoids media-driven arguments, and almost never gives the kind of soundbite the internet expects. Instead, the clearest recent message from him was his dismissal of the entire GOAT label itself. And that feels very Jordan. He doesn't step onto a stage to declare himself the best. He simply removes himself from the argument entirely and lets everyone else keep debating it. Ironically, that quiet approach has made the discussion even louder. Because when one of the biggest voices refuses to take part, fans fill the silence with speculation, theories, and endless comparisons that never seem to end.
I think there are some things that I do better than him. That's just how the game goes. There's a lot of things that I can say in particular. You already know how this conversation is going to be misinterpreted by people, man. And then if Benjamin asks, has it been a burden as an adult, that ambition? Because now everybody brings it up. You can't escape the comparison, to which LeBron responded by saying, quote, no, I think it's a very tiring conversation. It's barbershop talk. You can look at both of us and say that you love both of us without trying to shh on the other person. And usually it's the shh on me. But I know for sure that I've done my part in this journey, and more than anything, I hope, and I don't know, but I hope I made him proud at least wearing that number 23. End quote.
What really pushed this conversation over the edge was a report suggesting that Michael Jordan may have quietly supported LeBron James during the most intense early criticism of his career. According to Michael Wilbon on television, Jordan once reached out to him privately and essentially asked him to ease up on LeBron in the media, because he understood firsthand what that level of scrutiny feels like. Wilbon's account paints a very different image of Jordan compared to the often cold, distant public perception people associate with him. Instead of being indifferent to LeBron's situation, it suggests MJ was fully aware of how overwhelming the media pressure can be on a young superstar and may have wanted to soften that impact behind the scenes. That detail changes the tone of the entire discussion. Many fans assumed Jordan either stayed completely detached from LeBron's early struggles or quietly judged them from afar, but this version of events adds a more nuanced, human layer to his personality. It implies that Jordan may have recognized the weight being placed on LeBron early on and chose not to add fuel to the fire publicly. While that's not the same as openly defending him in interviews or public statements, it still reflects a meaningful level of understanding. And it also helps explain why people are now rethinking Jordan's silence in general. Because sometimes silence isn't indifference, it can also be restraint.
I came across, and I think that it's relatively disappointing. And I want Mike Wilbon and Doggy, two historians, people that I look up to. So I want to say this directly in front of them, and I'm open to the discussion. Everything that LeBron James said was right on point. When he dissected the difference between his game, Michael Jordan, how he looked at things, how he approaches the game. He looked to pass first. Michael Jordan looked to shoot first, etc., etc. All of those things are accurate. I didn't have a single syllable that he uttered until the last line, when he talked about you can look at two guys without, for the purpose of shitting on somebody. But obviously it's usually somebody doing that to me. That is where the problem lies.
This is the part fans continue to debate the most. For years, Michael Jordan has been treated as the ultimate reference point in every conversation about LeBron James, but his recent remarks suggest he has no interest in reducing basketball history into a simple ranking system. In his CBS interview, Jordan stated that in his view there is no single GOAT, a perspective that directly challenges the modern sports media culture built around comparisons, debates, and definitive winners. And that mindset helps explain why this debate never really ends. Jordan doesn't fully insert himself into the comparison, while LeBron also avoids making bold declarations that would settle it once and for all. As a result, fans are left dissecting interviews, replaying quotes, and constantly revisiting the same arguments without resolution. Ironically, LeBron himself appears exhausted by the discussion. In his ESPN interview, he made it clear that he grew up admiring Jordan and does not see this rivalry as something that should be turned into a final verdict on greatness. He expressed respect for MJ and acknowledged that both players accomplished things the other did not. It's a balanced and thoughtful response, but in today's media environment, nuance rarely ends debates. It usually fuels them further. Depending on who is listening, LeBron's words are interpreted either as humility or as avoidance. That's the core issue with GOAT debates. They are never just about one quote or one comparison. They are built on decades of emotion, nostalgia, and personal bias attached to different eras of basketball. Jordan's legacy carries enormous weight in that conversation. His resume feels almost untouchable to many fans: the perfect finals record, scoring dominance, defensive excellence, and the mythic aura of always delivering when it mattered most. LeBron's case, on the other hand, is built differently. It's centered around longevity, adaptability, and sustaining elite performance across multiple eras of the modern NBA. Those contrasting narratives are exactly why the debate refuses to settle. Each player represents a different definition of greatness, and fans naturally gravitate toward the version that aligns with their own values about what basketball should reward. Jordan's silence only amplifies the mystique. He rarely engages in public arguments or reacts to ongoing debates, and when he does speak, it carries extra weight precisely because it is so rare. That's why a single anecdote from Wilbon, combined with his CBS comment rejecting the GOAT label entirely, can spark such massive discussion. Fans want a clear, definitive Jordan versus LeBron statement, but instead they get subtle hints and restrained answers that leave everything open to interpretation. And in the world of sports media, ambiguity spreads faster than certainty. There's also a deeper cultural divide behind all of this. Jordan comes from an era where greatness was something proven on the court and protected quietly, not constantly debated online. LeBron exists in a modern era where every performance, stat, and ranking is instantly analyzed and re-ranked in real time. So when Jordan steps back from the debate, people interpret it in different ways. Some see it as confidence beyond comparison. Others see it as refusal to engage. And some believe it's simply his way of preserving the mystery that built his legacy in the first place. But the simplest explanation may be the most accurate. He doesn't need the debate to define who he is.
Because what we don't talk about enough, Wilbon and Doggy, is as great as LeBron James is, and how much he deserves to be celebrated, we don't talk about what he has done to hurt, not the game, but narratives associated with the game because of how he responds to it. I looked it up, Wilbon and Doggy. Do y'all know that there have been over 5,400 players in NBA history that have played in the NBA?
That doesn't mean Michael Jordan has never been connected to LeBron James' public journey. In fact, the Wilbon account suggests something very different from the usual narrative. At one point, Jordan reportedly reached out privately and asked that the media ease up on the intense criticism aimed at a young LeBron, because he personally understood what it feels like to be under that kind of pressure. If accurate, that detail adds a completely new layer to how people view their relationship. It shows that Jordan understood the damage that constant media comparisons and scrutiny can cause long before the social media era turned it into a non-stop cycle. It suggests that his connection to LeBron's story isn't just about rivalry or comparison, it may also include quiet understanding and empathy, even if it was never made public. At the same time, LeBron supporters interpret Jordan's silence in a very different way. When Jordan refuses to engage with the GOAT debate or avoids direct comparisons, some see it as him stepping away from judgment entirely, while others interpret it as a subtle way of avoiding giving LeBron an equal claim. This split in interpretation is exactly what keeps the discussion so heated. One side reads Jordan's behavior as humility and perspective, while the other sees it as quiet protection of his own legacy. And because LeBron continues to play and add to his career achievements, the debate never reaches a final conclusion. Each season brings new statistics, new milestones, and new moments that get pulled back into the same comparison cycle. LeBron himself hasn't made the conversation any easier to close. Even at 41, still competing deep into his 23rd NBA season, he continues producing at a level that keeps the comparisons alive. In his recent ESPN interview, he made it clear that he understands the debate but doesn't view it as something sacred or worth obsessing over. That creates a strange dynamic. LeBron's calm and mature approach to the discussion almost increases curiosity about Jordan's silence. The more LeBron shows fatigue toward the topic, the more fans want a definitive response from Jordan. So when people say Jordan's silence drives them crazy, what they're really reacting to is the uncertainty it creates. He has said just enough to reject the GOAT label outright, but not enough to clearly elevate LeBron or close the argument. There are also reports of him privately defending LeBron at certain points in the past, but those moments were never turned into public statements. That combination of rare public comments and private gestures creates the perfect storm for endless debate. People are left unsure whether to see Jordan as a rival, an ally, or simply someone who refuses to participate in modern sports discourse. And that's why this story keeps coming back. Jordan's silence isn't empty, it's powerful. It keeps the debate alive without him needing to actively take part in it. It forces fans to argue about legacy, respect, and greatness all over again while LeBron remains in the spotlight. In a way, Jordan may have handled it in the most effective way possible. He said just enough to keep the conversation alive, then stepped back and let everyone else fill in the rest.
That is how he has acted with so many people along the way. But he doesn't do it directly, as you know, Wilbon, and as you should know, Doggy. Oh, no. Other people do it for him. I remember years ago when I'm sitting there joking around with Rich Paul, and I'm like, y'all act like that's an insult. Seriously, with a serious face, Rich Paul looks me in the face. It is an insult. What? That is the problem.
The main takeaway from all of this is actually pretty straightforward. Michael Jordan didn't need a long explanation or public rant to get the entire basketball world talking again. Just one dismissive stance on the GOAT label, combined with the long-circulated Wilbon story about him privately showing support for LeBron, was enough to reopen the entire modern NBA debate. That's the level of influence Jordan still holds. Even without saying much, he can still steer the direction of the conversation. Without chasing headlines or engaging in interviews, he manages to keep the basketball world reacting to his presence and his absence at the same time. And as long as LeBron continues his career and the comparisons continue to surface, that silence will likely feel even louder than any direct statement ever could. So the situation remains exactly where it has always been. LeBron describes the debate as exhausting. Jordan dismisses the idea of a single GOAT altogether. Wilbon's account suggests Jordan once quietly defended LeBron from media criticism. And fans are left in the middle, turning every interview and quote into another piece of an ongoing story that never seems to end. That's exactly why this debate refuses to die, and why Jordan's quiet approach continues to generate more discussion than any loud response ever would. Now it's in the hands of the fans. Drop your opinion in the comments, because this is one of those basketball debates that never really reaches a final answer.